Hi guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, we are going to work about recognizing the appropriate use of different serverless computing. Now, when we understood the previous two of this session, we understood that EC2 instance is a type of server where you have the complete operating system installed and you need to manage the operating system. In terms of container, you're gonna get like a minimalistic operating system installed, and then you need to put in the softwares there, right? So that still requires your attention. When you talk about the serverless computing, so serverless computing is a technology where your attention is not required at all in terms of your operations and overview, like what you used to do earlier, because serverless computing doesn't have an actual server that you have to configure anything. So you will not have an interface or to command prompt where you need to set things up, set variables on your application. Nothing needed like that. So these are the two items over here which we're going to discuss in terms of serverless computing. One is Lambda. As you know, Lambda is a function where you can execute some logics in there and you can associate with anyone or anything in which runs on AWS. Now, Fargate is, it's something which is integrated with your ECS and EKS, which can, does the, manage the EKS or ECS by Fargate, because Fargate is a serverless computing engine for containers, allowing you to run containers without managing the underlying infrastructure. Okay, so do remember that the Fargate helps you to go serverless on the container as well. So when we create a container, we will see that on hands-on. You will see the Fargate coming up or appearing over there, telling you whether you want to, adopt to Fargate to manage your container services. So this will help you to go serverless even on your container-based options over there. So we will see in detail about these architectures in this video. Okay. So firstly, let's talk about Lambda. What is Lambda? So Lambda is a serverless compute service that runs code in response to events without provisioning or managing any service. So you don't really have to provision or manage service. You just have to go to Amazon. I'll show you in the hands-on. You will have to go to Amazon AWS console and then type Lambda and you will get to an interface. Now Lambda can be integrated to any of your service. It can run as a output of another service. So which means that you're monitoring some values. So you're expecting some values to be out of monitoring, right? So you either set a, let's just say for a computer CPU information. So if the CPU information either can cross a threshold or it can fall under a threshold. So when a CPU threshold fall under a threshold, you don't have to execute any commands. But when it goes above a threshold, then you can execute a Lambda function. Now, again, this is a serverless function because it can be called just like that without having to provision a server for you or install any software on that server and have that software executed. And from that execution of the software, you will get that function run. So you don't need that headache. So all you have to do is like run a Lambda function, call Lambda, say that I want this function to be run. And that could be any function. That could be calling an auto-scaling group. That could be creating a server manually, just like what you have using a template. It could be anything. So it can be run and that Lambda function would take care of the event and then basically construct based on top of that. So that's basically is the power of Lambda, and that's the power of serverless computing, because Lambda is going to be there waiting for such events to occur. So the next one is about supporting a wide range of programming language and integrates well with other AWS services. So that is something which you should remember. Automatically scale with the number of request or event. So this basically is the summary about Lambda. So this one of this will be your exam question definitely. So they would be asking you, indirectly saying that there's a requirement that I need to execute, you know, a logic after this program ends. So I want to use, I don't want to have a server build or having any infrastructure managed. So which of the following services I would be able to use? So that itself tells you that they are not in an intention of provisioning or managing any service. So they are looking for serverless computing. And one of the serverless computing, which they will definitely talk about, is Lambda. Okay, so that's just this is something will definitely appear on your exam. So just be cautious. Just try to read the exam, read the question again, look at the answer and try to relate to your answer. The question should be related to your answer. So if you are not getting the context, look at the answer, what answers you have, and then try to read the question again and try to relate the questions with the answer if it's out of context. Now, in terms of idle of the cases where you can actually use is that when you need codes to be executed in response to events like API requests, file uploads, or database changes, then you can have Lambda function executing these code changes. Short duration task or functions which needs like 15 minutes execution time, 20 minutes execution time. So these are short duration tasks, right? So in those situations also you can use Lambda function. You want to reduce operational overhead by avoiding infrastructure management. Again, this is the ideal use case where you can use AWS Lambda in that situation. Let's talk about that real-time use cases, which I have actually used Lambda. So event-driven application, like example, I've used it for processing, uploading of images or logos. Then I execute a Lambda function to upload it to my S3 drive or to process that image. So likewise, real-time data processing, streaming of data using Apache Kinesis. So that's a data processing service. So when I'm gonna use that service, then I can actually use the Lambda function to feed the data into Amazon Kinesis. So that is some kind of a shorter task, which I don't really need to do manually, but I can use Lambda in that case. Backend services, as in web or mobile applications for working with RESTful APIs, I can use Lambda function for that. Automation of infrastructure like schedule cleanup, file system cleanups and stuff like that. So those things I can use Lambda for. So these are possible scenarios where I have used Lambda for. Now let's talk about Fargate. Now, Fargate is a serverless computing engine, as I told you before, for containers, allowing you to run containers without managing the underlying infrastructure. So, which means that I can use my ECS and EKS, which was actually managed by myself. I can use Fargate to, I can go serverless on that, on those services, on those container services. Workload may, automatically, let me repeat that again, automatically provision the right amount of compute capability for containers scaling as they need. That's something Fargate will take care of. I don't really have to look at that scaling up, or I don't have to manually do that. Now, suitable for scenarios where you need to run containers application but don't want to manage the services. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is that workload may require more flexibility in resource allocations like CPU memory than Lambda allows. In that situations, you can use Fargate. And then another situation is that containerized task or server run for a long duration have more complex requirements than Lambda can support. So in that situation also, I can use Fargate as an alternative to Lambda. So next one is like which typical use cases? I would run microservices architecture where each service is deployed to a container. So in that situation, I would run it on Fargate. And running long running background jobs. So as I told you before, Lambda is for short running and Fargate is for long running background jobs. and then bash processing, data transforming request. It could be anything. So in those situations, you can run Fargate as an alternative to Lambda. In terms of Lambda is basically for a short-term job. Fargate is more of a long-term one because it's going to have a container service under it for it to support it to run for a longer time. So that is the that is a that is the key usage strategy for both my serverless computing, and both are serverless, and also one can be run for short term, another one for a long term. So that's something which you need to understand, because the question would be asked in a way that I am planning to run some jobs without having any kind of underlying platform. I want to run it for like it may take a long time for this job to execute. Something like that. When it comes related to timing, then you have to think about choosing Lambda or Fargate. Then you definitely have to choose Fargate if it's like a long running jobs. If that question talks about it. All right. Thanks again, guys, for your time and patience. If you have any questions or even the question section, I'll see you on the next video.